Hello. Today we are focusing on area of a rectangle. So I'm going to grab my notebook. I'm going to switch my screens here and we'll get started. All right. So we talked about how to find the area of a rectangle, and our formula was area equals base times height. So in this question, or in this rectangle, our base is 10 and our height is 3. So we're going to take base of 10 times a height of 3. And if you do the math there, it'd be 30, which means there are 30 squares inside of this rectangle. And my label for this would be units in the shape of squares. So I'm going to put units squared. Example number 2 is what we're working on today, which has fractions. So I have another rectangle here, and you have a width of 2/3 and a height of 2 1/5. Remember, our formula for area is length times width or base times height. So length times width or base times height. Our length here is 2/3 and our width or our height is 2 1/5. So in order to find how many squares are on the inside, I would multiply those two. Remember your strategy for changing a mixed number to an improper. You take 2 times 5, which is 10, and 10 plus 1 is 11. So this converts to 11/5. But we're going to keep the other fraction as 2/3. And when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So 2 times 11 is 22. And 3 times 5 is 15. I cannot reduce that, but I can rewrite it as a mixed number. I know 15 goes into 22 one time. If I take 22 minus 15, I get 7. The denominator stays the same. So there's a total of 1 7/15 squares inside of that rectangle. So since there's no labels here, I'm going to go units, which are those little squares, and they're in the shape of squares. So units squared. The other part of our lesson comes from going backwards when they tell us the area, but they don't tell us what the side length is. So on this question here, I know my area is 10. So they gave me my area. They gave me my length, but they didn't give me my width, or these are interchangeable. So I know my area is 10. I know my length is 2, but I don't know my width. There's a question mark there. So one of the things we worked on in this unit is how to transform a multiplication equation into a division equation. So remember, our total, our wholes are 10. So on division, we start with our wholes divided by one of our side lengths should give us what our answer is. I could also write it like this, but it's going to be more helpful to put the 2 first. I know 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I know my side length is 5. So I could check it and say length times width is supposed to be 10. And that's what I got. So I know that checks out. So what happens, or what does it look like when they give you fractions and they don't tell you the missing side? I would tackle it the same way. This is area. So area we know is length times width or base times height. My area, the total number of squares is 12. And that equals my length times my I don't know. Again, we talked about how to transform a multiplication equation into a division equation. So my total or my whole is 12 divided by my side length equals my missing side. Now we know how to divide fractions. You start by making a whole number into a fraction. And when we divide fractions, we know we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to keep the 12 over 1. We're going to change this division to a multiplication. And we're going to flip the 3/4 to the reciprocal of 4/3. And then we're going to go ahead and do our multiplication. So I know that 12 times 4 is 48. And I know 1 times 3 is 3. And I know I can fit that in there as a mixed number. So I'm just going to do some long division here. 48 divided by 3 is exactly what this says. 48 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. And if I subtract these two, I get 1. I'm going to bring down an 8. 3 goes into 8 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. When I subtract those two, I get 0, and I'm out of numbers. So I know that 16 is my answer. Now on this question and this question, since you're finding the side length, your answer label is just units. My side lengths are made up of lines straight. My inside's made up of squares. But this is just a line, so that's why it's just units. So this one here, there would be 6 lines on this side of this picture. So my answer is 16 of them, 16 units. I know there's 12 squares on the inside, but there'd be 16 units, just line segments like this on the outside. So that's what we did for practice today. Area of a rectangle. Good luck.